Breaking: Trump set a 72-hour deadline for Canada. Mark Carney fires back in minutes. Good evening. Tonight, we are covering a massive story that could change the cost of living for millions of people across North America. Early this morning, the White House delivered a hard choice to Canada. The message from President Donald Trump was simple but heavy. Canada has exactly 72 hours to accept a brand new set of trade rules, or the United States will hit them with massive new taxes on their goods. The clock is ticking right now. The official document from Washington used very polite, calm language. It called the plan a framework to modernize the relationship between the two countries. But when you read past the title, the polite words stop. In plain English, the United States handed Canada 4 strict demands, and Washington expects Canada to agree to all 4 before any actual talks or meetings even happen. Ottawa saw this immediately. They did not see an invitation to talk. They saw a list of demands. Let us look at exactly what the White House asked for today. First, the United States demanded that Canada completely drop all of its current taxes on American goods immediately. Canada put those taxes in place a while ago to answer previous American trade moves. Washington is now saying those must go away before any new trade talks can start. They are not offering to drop their own taxes first. They want Canada to make the first move and clear the board. Second, the White House wants strict promises on the price of energy. Canada sells a massive amount of crude oil, natural gas, and electricity to the United States. The new demand asks for guaranteed price limits on those resources. Officials in Ottawa pointed out right away what that actually means. It means the United States government wants to put limits on how much Canada can charge for its own natural resources. Third, Washington wants Canada to accept permanent taxes on Canadian steel and aluminum. The proposal offers to make the tax rate a little bit lower than it is now, but it insists the tax must become a permanent rule. It would lock in a trade barrier between the two neighbors forever. Fourth, the White House demanded that Canada change its farming and food safety rules to match American rules immediately. This was not a suggestion to slowly blend the two systems over a few years. It was a demand for a total and instant copy of American agricultural laws. If you put all 4 of those demands together, they do not just tweak the trade relationship, they completely rewrite how the two countries do business. These are massive structural changes. Inside the White House today, officials felt very confident. They saw this 72-hour deadline as a bold move. They believe this extreme pressure will force a fast decision and score a quick win for American factory workers and farmers. They wanted to shock the system. But the reaction from Canada was not what Washington expected. The Canadian government moved incredibly fast. Usually when a country gets a threat like this, they take days to think about it. They hold private meetings. They release a long, confusing statement. That did not happen today. Instead, a packed room of reporters in Ottawa got their answer in less than 3 minutes. Prime Minister Mark Carney walked up to the podium. He did not yell. He did not look angry. He spoke in a very steady, calm voice. He only said a few sentences. He stated clearly that Canada will never give up control of its own laws or its own natural resources just to get a seat at a negotiating table. He flatly refused to let another country set the price tag on Canadian energy. And then he just stopped talking. He did not take a single question from the reporters. He turned around and walked out of the room. That brief moment completely flipped the script on this entire standoff. By doing it that way, the Prime Minister sent a very specific message. He showed that Canada will not trade away its independence to stop a threat. He also made a very smart political move by drawing a hard line in public so quickly. He made it impossible for any future Canadian leader to back down. If anyone tries to accept those American demands later, the Canadian public will not stand for it. The reaction in Washington was instant. The president posted online that the quick rejection was a huge mistake. People working in the administration went on television and called Canada ungrateful. The public statements coming out of the administration were angry and aggressive. But if you look behind the scenes, the story is very different. Inside the Capitol building, a lot of lawmakers are getting very nervous. Several Republican senators and state governors started making quiet phone calls today. These are people who represent states that grow a lot of food or pump a lot of oil. They know exactly how much a trade war will cost their local towns. They are raising alarms because they understand that a long fight with Canada will hit their voters right in the wallet. Lawmakers from border states know that if trade stops, people lose their jobs and prices at the grocery store go up. The stock market also told a very clear story today. When trading opened this Monday morning, traders saw the 3-inut video from Ottawa. They realized right away that Canada was not going to fold. Investors started pulling their money out of risky spots. Energy companies took a hit. Companies that buy and sell farm equipment saw their stock prices drop. The people who move money for a living are preparing for a long, painful fight. They are moving their cash to safe hiding spots because they know what happens when supply chains freeze. To understand why this fight is so dangerous, you have to look at the basic assumption Washington is making. The White House believes that the American economy is so big and so powerful that other countries have no choice but to surrender when threatened. For some smaller countries across the ocean, that might be true. But the relationship with Canada does not work that way. The two economies are basically tied together with steel cables. You cannot pull one side without dragging the other. Trade goes in both directions every single minute of the day. Take the auto industry as an example. You do not just build a car in Michigan anymore. A single car part, like a steering wheel or a transmission, might cross the border between the United States and Canada 6 or 7 times before the car is finally finished and sent to a dealership. If you put a new tax on things crossing the border, or if you slow down the trucks at the bridge, that car part becomes too expensive. The assembly line has to stop. If the line stops, the workers are sent home, and that hurts American workers just as fast as it hurts Canadian workers. The energy sector is exactly the same. The United States buys a massive amount of oil and gas from Canada. A lot of the refineries in America are specifically built to process heavy Canadian crude oil. If you block that oil with taxes, those American refineries have nothing to process. Gas prices at the pump will shoot up. Heating bills for homes in the northern states will jump right as the weather gets cold. Prime Minister Carney and his team know this math perfectly. That is exactly why they gave such a short, flat answer today. They know that Washington cannot actually win a fast victory here. The Canadian refusal was designed to force the United States to make a much harder choice. Washington now has to decide if they want to risk destroying their own supply lines just to prove a point. So what happens next? There are really only 3 ways this plays out, and every single one of them matters to your daily life. Let us walk through the scenarios. In the first scenario, the pressure inside the United States gets too high. Senators, governors, and business owners complain so loudly that the White House has to back down. They quietly drop the extreme demands. They agree to sit down at a table without forcing Canada to surrender first. They talk for a few months. They make a small, boring deal, and everyone claims they won. In this version, prices stay normal and people keep their jobs. In the second scenario, nobody backs down. The 72-hour clock runs out. The White House slaps massive taxes on Canadian goods. Canada immediately hits back with its own taxes on American goods. This is the messy path. If this happens, supply chains will choke, factories will cut shifts, the cost of building materials will climb. You will see it on your grocery receipt. You will see it when you fill up your gas tank. The political anger will grow in both countries as people start losing money. Eventually, the two sides will have to sit down and talk, but they will be doing it after causing billions of dollars in damage. Then there is the third scenario. In this version, Canada stands completely firm and the rest of the world watches. Countries in Europe and Asia are already paying close attention to the standoff. If they see the United States using extreme threats against its closest neighbor, those other countries will start looking for new friends. They will realize it is too dangerous to rely on the American market. Canada will speed up its trade deals with Europe and Asia. Over the next few years, the trade maps will completely change. The United States will slowly lose its power to bully other nations because those nations will have found other buyers for their goods. This change would not happen overnight, but it would be permanent. Right now, nobody knows which of those 3 paths we are on. The decision sits entirely with the leaders in Washington and Ottawa, but the impact of that decision will land right on your kitchen table. We spent today asking economists what this fight means for regular folks. The answers were very consistent. If these massive taxes go into effect, your monthly budget will take a hit. Businesses are already trying to figure out how to survive. Some companies will try to find new places to buy their parts. Other companies will just raise their prices and pass the cost down to you. Large corporations can usually handle this kind of chaos. They have extra cash to burn, but small businesses on Main Street do not have that kind of padding. A sudden jump in the cost of raw materials can wipe out a small factory or a local farm in a matter of months. Workers in places like steel mills, auto plants, and energy fields are watching the news very closely tonight. They know their paychecks are on the line. If a trade war drags on, companies will stop hiring. They will put expansion plans on hold. Local governments might have to step in and hand out emergency money to towns that lose their main factory. But government help always takes a long time to arrive. While the politicians fight on television, lawyers and diplomats are working quietly in the background. They are reading old trade rule books. They are trying to figure out exactly what is legal and what is not. They are planning out the next 10 moves like a game of chess. But at the end of the day, public anger is what usually ends these fights. When voters see their bills going up, they start calling their representatives. Governors who see their state economy shrinking will fly to Washington and demand a fix. That kind of pressure can break a political standoff very fast. It is very important to look at how different this situation is from normal politics. Usually politicians try to talk things out behind closed doors before they make a big public threat, but the White House chose a different tactic here. They chose speed and shock. They wanted to create a crisis to force a quick surrender. Canada chose the exact opposite tactic. They chose to be a brick wall. They bet that steadiness and basic economic reality will beat a loud threat. We are going to find out very soon which tactic wins. Canada actually has a lot of options beyond just fighting with Washington. Over the last few years, they have been working hard to find new buyers for their goods. They have signed major deals across the ocean. Moving goods to Asia or Europe is harder than driving a truck across the Michigan border, but it is entirely possible. If the United States makes the border too difficult to cross, Canada will just put its goods on ships instead of trucks. That takes time to set up, but once those new shipping lanes are open, they rarely close. The United States, on the other hand, cannot easily replace what it gets from Canada. You cannot just magically invent a new pipeline to bring cheap energy to the Midwest. If the supply line from the north gets cut, American voters will feel the pain instantly. And when food and gas get expensive, leaders lose elections. Tonight, experts are analyzing every single word spoken today. They're looking at the exact phrasing of the White House document. They are watching the body language of the Canadian Prime Minister. This might sound silly, but in high-level diplomacy, every single word matters. A short, strict refusal on camera traps future politicians. It builds a wall that is very hard to walk back from. That is the true power of what we watched happen today. We saw lines being drawn that will dictate trade for the next 10 years. We will keep tracking the trucks at the border crossings. We will keep watching the stock market numbers. We will bring you the statements from farming groups and energy bosses. Every new piece of information will give us a clue about how this ends. But for anyone who just wants the simple truth of what happened today, remember this one fact. A massive demand for total surrender was met with a flat 3-minute rejection. The result is total uncertainty. The next 2 days will determine if we get a quiet agreement or an economic earthquake. This story is huge because it tests a very old idea. It tests whether pure size and power can always win. The United States is betting that its massive economy gives it the right to dictate the rules. Canada is betting that mutual need is stronger than pure size. The winner of this bet will write the rule book for global trade for the rest of our lives. If you care about keeping your job or if you care about what you pay for a gallon of milk, you need to pay attention to this. The decisions being made in quiet rooms tonight will reach your bank account by next month. Let us take a deeper look at the farming side of this story. Agriculture is a massive part of the cross-border economy. Every single day, trains and trucks move wheat, beef, dairy, and vegetables back and forth. Farmers plan their entire year based on knowing they have a steady buyer across the border. If Washington forces a sudden change in safety standards or slaps a massive tax on food imports, that system breaks down. A farmer in the Midwest might suddenly find out that the Canadian buyer for his corn cannot afford it anymore. He is stuck with a crop he cannot sell. The price of his corn drops. At the same time, a meat packing plant might have to pay double for imported equipment. Their costs go up. This squeeze ruins rural towns that depend on agriculture to survive. And do not forget about construction. Steel and aluminum are the backbone of building anything. They go into new houses, apartment buildings, bridges, and heavy machinery. If the United States puts a permanent tax on Canadian metal, the cost to build a new house goes up instantly. Construction companies will have to rewrite their budgets. City governments will realize they can no longer afford to fix a local bridge because the steel costs too much. When building gets too expensive, projects get canceled. When projects get canceled, construction workers lose their jobs. It is a domino effect that starts with a piece of paper in Washington and ends with a lost job in your hometown. The legal fights over this will take years. Countries will go to global trade courts to argue about who broke the rules. They will file thousands of pages of complaints. But the real world damage does not wait for a judge to make a ruling. The taxes happen immediately. The job losses happen immediately. That is why smart leaders try to avoid these massive public fights. They know that once a tariff is turned on, it is incredibly hard to turn off. Businesses hate surprises. They want predictability. When leaders use shock tactics and tight deadlines, they destroy predictability. If you are listening to this right now and wondering what you should do, the advice from financial experts is basic. Look at your household budget. Prepare for the cost of driving and eating to go up slightly in the coming weeks. If you own a small business, pick up the phone tomorrow. Call your suppliers and ask them what their backup plan is. Check to see if your supplies cross the border. If they do, start looking for a second option just in case the trucks stop moving. You do not need to panic, but you do need to plan. The next 48 hours are critical. We might see the two sides quietly walk back from the edge. We might see the rhetoric cool down, or we might see both sides dig their heels in deeper. The world is watching. If an ally as close as Canada can be treated this way, no trading partner on Earth feels safe. Tonight, we will be right here bringing you the facts as they happen. We will skip the political spin and tell you exactly what the decisions mean for your life, your work, and your family. For tonight, the board is set. A 72-hour threat is on the table. A clear, calm rejection has been delivered. The clock is winding down. We will see what tomorrow brings. Thank you for tuning in to this special report. I'm here to make sure you have the facts. Have a good night, stay calm, and check in with us tomorrow for the latest updates on the border. Would you like me to help you brainstorm some follow-up questions you could ask a local business owner about this situation?